Welcome, Region 3 school counselors, to our last session. This is session number 4, and we are so fortunate to have Lisa King with us today, who is a Cobb County school counselor extraordinaire. She is an author, and I have her book, her newest book, Be Your Hero, which I absolutely love. And she's written other many books on growth mindset. She is an author and a national speaker. I saw her at ASCA several years ago, and you are in for a real treat because she is an expert on growth mindset. So I am going to turn this over. Thank you, Lisa, for being here.
Thanks.
Turning it over to you.
Excellent, Barbara. Thank you so much for having me. I know at the the conference we were supposed to be presenting at, there were going to be a lot of people, and maybe this can reach even more people so we can continue our professional learning through this very stressful and unprecedented time. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to see how this goes, because that's the beautiful thing. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Hopefully so. Barbara, just chime back in if
Yes.
if something goes awry.
Yep.
Okay. So I changed the title of my session a little bit because we're now not just teaching and counseling. We're also navigating a new world with growth mindset. So some of this presentation, I added a couple screens, and I'm sure I've done this presentation, as Barbara said, I have the honor to go around the country now, a couple different places and talk to people, which is so weird because typically I sit where you guys are. Well, right now we're at home, we're all sitting at home, but I'm sitting in professional development, listening to speakers all the time. And when I go out and talk to people in the field, I love that I'm in the arena getting my tushy kicked just like you guys every day in the schools, and now in navigating being a counselor online. Growth mindset is something that is going to help us as we are forging forward with just new things all the time. So here's my info. Contact me anytime if you have any questions. A little more about me, since you get to hear me for an hour. Don't add these numbers up. It's not my age. I'm actually 47, not shy about it, proud. But for 22 years, I've been a school counselor, an elementary counselor. It's actually 23 now. Got to change that. I'm lucky I've been at Blackwell Elementary in Cobb County all of those 23 years, which is really insane and wonderful. And I think it's given me the liberty to create new programs because I have the trust of the community and my fabulous administrator and my great county who gives me the training to know what the changes are. So there's my 22 or 23. 10 years is my most important job as a mom to my daughter, who is out right now, so she won't disturb me in my new office. She's out on a walk. And 2 years, this is something some people don't know about me. 2 years I spent as a behavior disorder teacher in a psychoeducational center. My first 2 years on the job, and that was in DeKalb County at Sexton Woods Psychoed Center. And that was some rich experience. Oh my goodness. I loved every minute, and I gained a lot of skills in dealing with difficult kids. So that's where I come from, my experience. And we're gonna just start talking about what is growth mindset. So we all need to have like an elevator speech. You've heard that before perhaps, that if you get into an elevator, you should be able to, if we're going up to the 10th floor, by the time we get there, you should be able to tell me concisely what a topic is that you wanna get across. So if you were going to tell your administrator why you should bring growth mindset to your building, at the end of the session, you should have a concise elevator speech. Now that speech would be different if you're explaining it to a teacher or a kid or your stakeholders or even other counselors. What is growth mindset? Well, it's a concept developed by Carol Dweck, who I saw at ASCA in Denver, my first ASCA, several years ago, and she really changed the trajectory in which I operate as a counselor and as a mom and a wife and a friend and just a learner. If you haven't watched this TED Talk, she's fantastic. She talks about just students becoming hopeless at the grades they receive when they get an F, and saying that if we, instead of putting Fs on students' papers, what if we could put, instead of an F, not yet? You don't get it yet. And that concept, what she has found through a ton of research, is that the power of yet and the concepts of growth mindset can actually, once a person can foster and the growth mindset and adopt that philosophy, they actually have better achievement and ability to overcome adversity. And we need a whole lot of that these days. So growth mindset is simply embracing challenges, seeing that you're never gonna, know everything, and that criticism can help you, feedback, and other people who are doing things. It's a whole way to look that intelligence is actually something you can gain. It's not something you're born with. When I'm teaching students about growth mindset and fixed mindset, in the elementary level, I actually focus only on growth mindset until about 5th grade, so that they know what I want them to have, which I think is easier than focusing on fixed and growth. But if you're in upper grades, if you're in middle and high, you probably can share both. I just always begin with what is growth mindset. One of my favorite resources, oh my goodness, I love, it used to be called Train Ugly. So if you see right here, it's Train Ugly. This is an old graphic. They've recently remarketed. They've changed their website, and it's called The Learner Lab. And Trevor Reagan runs that, and he's brilliant. He's also not too bad to look at, just FYI. But he has these videos. I'll show one at the end if there's time, about how educators and parents can talk to kids to praise effort instead of praising end results. His videos are great for teenagers and adults because they're really fast-paced and fascinating with great graphics. And this is his graphics: skills are built, not born. Okay, so, we're data-driven, right? We're student-driven, but we also want to present to our administrators things that have data behind it. And growth mindset for sure does. In this study, 168,000 10th graders in Chile were in this study in 2016. There's a new study in 2019 actually done out of the University of Texas and Austin, and they have a large N equals also of just American students in a cross section of urban and rural and affluent and socioeconomically challenged and all sorts of different subgroups. And overall, they show the benefit of learning a growth mindset. So there's research to support that we should teach this no matter what kind of school we're in, because I know in Georgia, it matters your school. And we have all kinds of schools, even within counties, of course. And that's the beautiful thing I feel about growth mindset, is that it benefits all kids: perfectionists, kids that are having academic, they need remediation. It helps teachers, it helps parents, it helps kids with friendship problems or depression and anxiety. That's why I feel like that common language we're going to talk about is something very important. But the research behind it also helps us with the vomit that comes out of the computer, right? Isn't that a great graphic for what's going on right now? It's just like, hello, here's 12,000 resources. Sift through and find one that works. That if you Google growth mindset and achievement or growth mindset resources, there is now a vomit of resources. There just is. When I started looking into growth mindset, bringing it to schools in about 2015, there were very few resources. So I created one or two. But right now there are awesome resources. It is, as with all things fabulous, tough to sift through to find good stuff. So I'm going to try and help you with that too. So these are the two books that I wrote, one in 2016 and one in 2017. This first one is like my baby. My 10-year-old baby is really my baby. But this book really, I'm proud of it. It gives this acrostic that you can, now when I'm telling you all this stuff, you can go buy these books or you can steal these ideas. I'm not here to tell you to go buy books. I'm telling you the ideas in which you can steal. because you can borrow and give credit, but we do not have time to reinvent the wheel to help children. We need to share and help each other. So use this acrostic. This works K to 12, how you can teach growth mindset. And there's confusion. Mindfulness and growth mindset and self-talk, what's the difference? There are differences, but mindfulness and self-talk are encompassed in having a growth mindset. So we'll go through this acrostic actually to help me teach what growth mindset is. And on the way, you're gonna get some skills and some ideas of how you can implement this in groups, in classroom, in online, virtual counseling, in just creating the mindset that we're going to need to move on as we figure things out going forward, because school will be different. Education is going to be different when we get back there. We've all grown our brains immensely in just these short 10 days. So this bottom resource is also filled with scripts and PowerPoints that you can download to teach. But I will move on. If you have any questions, you can email me, you can go to my website. I'll show you how to get in touch with me, but you can always reach out to me. So I think of growth mindset as a buffet table. And with any good buffet table, you should not take everything at once. You need to take what you want, what you're interested in, and leave what you don't like, and start small. Don't take everything at once, and just take what you're interested in. Now, this is interesting. So typically, when I do these little talks, I talk about how I started in classroom guidance, in core curriculum, or the instruction, whatever we'd like to call it these days, when we go into large groups of classrooms. And I liked starting that way because the teachers were interested. Neuroscience is cool. So when you start teaching kids neuroscience, if you're going into classes and the teachers are planning, I found teachers really paid attention. Nowadays, since our lessons are going to look different for a little while, when you're home doing growth mindset lessons, perhaps you want to do a classroom lesson, perhaps you just want to talk about the common language. I think creating a common language is very important right now. And collecting data, of course, helps us show how students are different because of our interventions. So here again is where to get buy-in. I think sharing the data that Dweck and her colleagues out of Stanford have collected along with thousands of other research papers. This is kind of cool. Just a little aside from Lisa King here. At Blackwell, my principal, who's amazing and the biggest walking growth mindset, she didn't know what that was when she first came. And I told her I was writing a curriculum and I wanted her to, read, I think I gave her Mary Kay Ricci's book about mindsets in the classrooms. And she, she says this now, she put it on the side of her table. Well, now she's doing her dissertation on growth mindset. How cool is that? I mean, she drank the Kool-Aid. And so not all of your administrators are going to drink the Kool-Aid like that. So getting buy-in might be different. But if you look at the bottom of the screen, some of us, you're just getting the seed planted with your administrator. Some of today is me planting the seed with you. And some of you will be blooming in different ways. If you are interested in implementing growth mindset into classroom like a unit, especially if you're in the rotation as counselors, I teach with each of these letters, right? So I do a unit on mindfulness or a lesson on mindfulness, a lesson on identifying brain basics. And here's a crosswalk. It's on my blog, and all these blue things are hyperlinked. So if you're an elementary person or a middle school person and you want to look at these lessons on how I did it, like the options, just go in, you can go to my blog and you can get the hyperlink to either the Teacher Pay Teacher, the PowerPoint, and the TPTs aren't all mine. They're other people's that I've borrowed, because that's what this is all about. Is my lessons are going to expand every year by me stealing with credit or borrowing or creating. But for now, this is my crosswalk. And I hope I'm not talking too quickly. Barbara, am I doing all right? Thumbs up if I'm doing okay. Excellent. Okay, let's move to mindfulness. All right, so mindfulness is, wow, I've heard so much about mindfulness as we're dealing with the current global crisis. It is something we've been teaching for a bit. It was controversial in the beginning when people would associate it with Eastern religions because we're not teaching religion in school. But we are teaching brain science. That's cool. We're teaching being in the here and now. And it is a powerful self-care technique that is part of growth mindset, but different. It's the first thing I teach because we're teaching kids about this machine and the brain. And basically mindfulness is being in the here and now, quieting the thoughts in our brain so that we can focus on our senses with non-judgmental intention. And it's a practice. It's something you have to get better and better at. And I actually have been doing more mindfulness practice than I have before. I was starting to take yoga, which is one type of mindfulness practice. And although I miss practicing in the studio, there's some great things live streamed online. But again, mindfulness is just the practice of being in the here and now, because we can't control what goes on out there, but we can control what goes on in here. And it's a tug of war. It's noticing what's happening in our body and our mind, thinking versus sensing. So thinking thoughts, in class, I give the example of why is my friend mad at me? Am I going to have a test? When is recess? What's for lunch? Lunch, of course, now in our homes happens every 5 seconds, doesn't it? My daughter calls it brungry. She's bored hungry. She's brungry. So the sensing versus the thinking, we have to notice our bodies when we are thinking about things that are going on in the world, or we watch too much news or check social media too much. Our thoughts go rampant. So you have to focus on the senses, and it's a tug of war. If you focus on, like right now when you're listening to me, focus on where your tongue is in your mouth. Notice if your jaw is clenched or if your teeth are apart. It's hard. When you're focused on those senses, you're not thinking about things in the world as much. You're just focusing. And we have to get used to throwing our attention to our senses, to throw our attention to our kid instead of our phone. We have to throw our attention, and we have to teach kids how to throw their attention. I often use the remote control as an analogy. You have to change the channel of your brain from when is recess to what is, Mrs. Smith saying, from what is going on in the world to what game am I going to play with my family tonight, and attend to it with all of my senses so that I'm not thinking and the thoughts going rampant. One activity is grounding exercises where you do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In the real world, my grounding is counting colors. So you see the eye is counting 5 things. A lot of times if I'm having some anxiety, let's say driving, road rage we've all experienced before, I will count colors that I see to get me out of the feeling, to get me back to the thinking. So I will count colors to calm myself down. Red, blue, green. When you're driving, sometimes you see lots of different shades of green you can count. But that grounding exercise is really to get your mind on the senses and calm down. If you're in group and you have access to this kind of stuff, this is a good grounding activity where you can actually have kids use different sensory modes and then stop and name a sense. So use the fidget spinner, spin, 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 stop. What do you feel? Hard plastic. Using the sand, playing, stop, look around, what do you see? And then they can switch the fidgets. The kids really like that activity. Deep breathing. Again, in this day and time, we're learning a lot of different types of deep breathing. I like to teach kids things they can do with their hands so that it's a replacement behavior, because a lovely young man who was in 4th grade last year, who is both on the spectrum, he's ASD and gifted. You know those kids? You know those kids, right? They're very smart and very quirky and can fly off the handle really quickly. Well, he didn't want to go to his class. And so I actually wasn't his grade level counselor, but he knows me. And I walked up to him in class He didn't want to go to gifted. The day before, he melted down. So I walked in and he knew what I was trying to get him to do. And he looks at me and I said, buddy, just walk with me. He's like, I'm not going with you. And if you tell me to calm down or take a deep breath, I'm going to go ballistic. And I believed him. I believed him, because people, when, it's like that thing. If you tell people to calm down, the last thing they're going to do is calm down. But if you say, let's take a walk and count colors, let's do volcano breathing, the brain likes novel ideas, and kids do too. Oh, this is one of my favorites. Beth Ruff, a Cobb County counselor, fabuloso, taught me this one. And I have it on my blog on lisakingcounselor.com. And there's also a kitchen table classroom. There's a tutorial. But my 2nd and 4th grade classes this year they wanted these in the classroom all this time. And at first they started by saying, I can't do it. But they figured out that they just couldn't do it yet. And it was very calming. All right, moving on to identifying brain basics. I always tell people, when you can do this with your staff, I always do it and someone always falls for it. I always tell people in trainings that I have put free models of the brain under some people's chair so that they get a prize. So somebody always like turns their chair over or gets on the floor to reach under, but really they're reaching under their chair to pull out their hand. So I kind of am modeling, like, reach under your chair and pull out your model. And some people get that I'm standing here with the model. Anywho, Dr. Daniel Siegel came up with this great model of the brain, and it's attached to you. It is your hand. It is the greatest way to figure out and teach brain basics. The brain has 3 parts. It actually has many more, but we're going to teach 3 parts. It has the prefrontal cortex, which is represented by your fingers, the limbic system, which is represented by your thumb, and the brain stem, which is your wrist. Now, the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's the talking part. The limbic system is the feeling, and the brainstem is survival, like breathing and heartbeat. So there is a little button on your limbic system called the amygdala. And when you press the amygdala, when it gets activated, like you're scared, what happens to your brain? Boop. You flip your lid. The prefrontal cortex is what helps you think, and it goes out the door. You are only feeling. So if a bear walks in the room, you're not thinking, oh, what kind of bear is it? You're boop, feeling, scared, mad, oh my goodness. And you go to fight, flight, or freeze. So what do we need to do to get this prefrontal cortex back in place? Mindfulness activities for one, or exercising, going outside on this very beautiful day. All those calm down activities help your prefrontal cortex get back in place. And this is regulation, people. This working together is regulation. Dysregulated brains, and what are most people walking around like? Bubbly brains, where you never know when people are going to flip, because we are pulled so far. So we have so much stimulus. This time in our lives when we're at home and forced to slow down a little bit is interesting. To see how we're coping when we are forced to slow down. That's a whole nother chapter and session. Okay, so the brain basics, I love to teach kids about flipping your lid. And the other part of brain basics is neuroplasticity, which is a huge part of growth mindset. Neuroplasticity is the ability to train your brain. And those little pathways in your brain get fatter every time you practice. This activity is from Mindset Matters, and it uses pull and peel licorice. And the students, there are some great videos that, I like videos that are like 2 minutes so you can teach after. So I show a little video, and then we trace the neural pathways with our licorice to show that they get fatter as you practice something. And then when they're done with this, they can eat it. And again, here is 2 things. Number 1, here is the why do we lose control of our emotions? It's a great 6-minute video that it retells the brain flipping your lid, and it is very kid friendly. I would say grades 3 to 6, this would be really good for. And here's also another analogy of the brain downstairs and brain upstairs. And when brain downstairs gets really mad, brain upstairs people fall on their heads, and those people are like thinking Theo and problem solving Pete. So it's just how it makes sense for you and how you want to share that knowledge with your kids. But literally, I have students all the time that talk about, that made me flip my lid, or kids just walking into my office saying, they can't even speak, but they can tell me with their hand that they have flipped their lid. So another analogy for neuroplasticity is the tightrope, and thinking about, this is actually a good video and it is about neuroplasticity, but it's like so like 70s. I can't really bring myself to show it to people. So I just clipped. This is showing the precipice, and you kind of like scaling on one skinny little rope across this big valley from mountain to mountain. And then you're practicing on this tightrope. This is how you practice any skill: math, making friends, learning how to do Zoom, right? So this is how you practice, and the more times you do it, you're throwing more ropes and you're building a bridge. That's how we learn things. That is how we are learning how to deal with technology. That is how we are learning new skills, how to cook different meals, how to do different math, how to be a homeschool teacher. Okay, so the not yet. First of all, I just want to talk one more thing about the brain. And we're noticing this as we're at home a lot right now. When the bum is numb, the brain is drained. We've got to get up and move. We've got to get our kids up and moving. I'm always like fascinated that learning about your brain is not a K-12 standard, right? We teach them about planets and about like all this other stuff that I'm learning, because my daughter's in the 4th grade, so I'm learning some stuff. But I would love for her to learn about how her brain works, how she can study better, how she can deal with her emotions. And about moving your body and taking brain breaks. They know Go Noodle, but they understand why that helps them learn. So one of the ways I get my kids up and moving is doing this growth mindset chant. And I love doing this in groups, because you can peg the high school people so easy, because they're not chant people usually. But I have my kids do this, and I'll just show you. I think you guys can still see me in a little square. So I'll show you how the motions go. So I say, what you gotta do? You gotta train my brain. Why you gotta do it? I gotta show the world. So the kids are doing the motions. And I say, what you gotta show them? And they say, I got some skills. What kind of skills? And they tell me, whatever I work on. And they do that. And usually they can say it in a funny accent, because it's fun. Whatever I work on. And what's that called? And then we do a growth mindset dance. Growth mindset, growth mindset. And the kids love it. I have videos to show, but I can't show it on a webinar. That's going to be broadcast all over the place. But there are cute kids that do this. I do have on my blog some staff kids doing this. I should have shown. But if anyone ever wants to see it in action, I did get permission from those parents. So that's on my blog. But this is a great way to just intertwine this into other lessons. Once they know this chant, even with the big kids, you can let them, they're not going to do the chant, but you can teach them these concepts, because it's really whatever you work on. I mean, in other lessons, when we talk about conflict resolution, or, going to college, or finishing work, it's whatever you work on. And if kids worked on math the amount of time that they're on Fortnite, they learn some things. Their neuro pathway would get better. And so this, even if the kids just get what you got to do, you got to train your brain. And what's that called? Growth mindset, growth mindset. They're getting it in a multimodal way. We're halfway done. How does that happen? It goes so fast. Okay, so the not yet. So we've all had the not yet, right? You weren't born knowing how to run. You crawled, and then you walked, and eventually you ran. We all have the not yet in different skills we're learning. I love to play games. Like at this point in my sessions, I'll ask the audience, do you want to play a game? And if you're doing a long lesson with kids, that's like the best thing you can do. Because at this point, I might be starting to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 wah. But if you do an interactive game, their brain connects and engages, and so does yours. So you want to play a game? All right, I'll play it by myself. It'll be great. I'm going to the moon. I just tell the kids, or the grown-ups. I play this with grown-ups all the time. I'm going to the moon, and I'm going to bring glass, but I can't bring a cup. Who wants to come to the moon? And if you know this game, you might know something you can bring. And you would have the students guess, what do you want to bring? And some kids will guess things. And once you know the trick, you would tell them if they could bring it or not. So let's say John right now is saying, I can bring a book. Yes, he actually can bring a book. You can come to the moon. And then Janie over there says, I want to bring a car. No, you can't bring a car. And kids kind of get sad. I've had criers in this game. The point of this game is to figure out a trick. And you'll see genuine frustration in people that don't know the trick. So as the game goes on, I say, stop. Who knows what I'm doing? Who understands this game? You can bring a book, you can bring glass, you can bring pizza to the moon, you can bring a llama to the moon, but you can't bring a car, you can't bring a can, you can't bring wine, but you can bring beer, not to a school, but to the moon. The trick, if I've thoroughly confused you, if you're in the not yet, that's okay. How does that feel? Notice that, right? If you're in the not yet, you don't understand. The trick to this game is bringing something that has double letters. A book, a spoon, right? Glass, pizza, a llama. But you can't bring things that are spelled without double letters. It's silly, but it gets kids. And if I thoroughly confused you, I got you in the not yet. To really empathize with kids about when they don't get something. I mean, I don't get directions. I get lost everywhere. And I get that feeling of what if I couldn't do math? And I felt like this in the classroom because I get lost in my own neighborhood. You could ask my friends, it's true. And so I know with the growth mindset, I'm never gonna be great with directions. But if I'm trying to find my way to a certain place and I don't know how to do that yet, I will get better and better by practicing that. I'm never gonna be a great singer, but I can get better and better at a song specifically. So growth mindset doesn't mean you can be whatever you want to be by snapping your fingers. It means you can get better at a skill by practicing it. Okay, more games? Yes, of course. Why not? Okay, I love these. These are called tribons. If you Google that, you'll find them. But they're 3 words and they have one thing in common. What do these things have in common? They all have horns. Okay, so unicorn, car has a horn, and a French horn. So now your neural pathway is warmed up, right? So now you can do some other ones. And these are great hooks for lessons. If you're doing anything about growth mindset or neuroscience or neuroplasticity, accomplishing things, having grit. All right, do y'all know what that one is? Chop, pogo, yard. They're all sticks. And sometimes I love it when the students go, oh, I say, that's learning. That's the sound of learning. Some of you might have said to yourself, oh. All right, what about this one? You want to guess? All right, guess it out loud. All right, if you said things you can carve, you're right. Oh, learning. Okay, so just little brain teasers and games are great for hooking kids. So look those up under Tribons. I actually have a ready-made worksheet. I haven't posted that on my blog yet. Email me if you want that, but I'll be probably posting it soon because that will be fun for kids to do at home right now. Okay, so when I do games in the classroom, and especially when I do it in professional development, I ask people, where were you on this staircase? Because some staff members that don't love professional development are in the I won't do it. They're multitasking, they're not playing the game. But when they see other people playing and having fun, they get to the, okay, I want to do it. How do I do this? And that's how our kids are. Our kids are like that about tasks. And sometimes it's because they're intimidated or fearful or unmotivated, so many reasons. But this is a great handout for parents to hang on their fridge or classrooms, you know, parents or teachers to put in their classrooms. Okay, so let's talk about grit. We're on determination and grit in the acrostic. And grit is a term that was developed by Angela Duckworth out of University of Pennsylvania. And she talks about, she gives a definition of grit as passion and perseverance over long-term goals. In the academic world, I love when people debate, like they debate the meaning of grit. I'm like, well, didn't she come up with it? Doesn't she get to decide? But no, you know, people like to debate and have a good old-fashioned discussion. I use grit a lot as like perseverance and determination and not giving up. And that's what it is. But she really meant it for long-term goals because she researched who's the best at their field. Her book talks about who's the best in entertainment and the military, education, corporate America, and you know, and all those best of the best had grit for long-term goals. Now, effort is a very growth mindset-y thing because when we reward effort, we see people know how to get that praise. We see people want more of that. And in this bottom, this is a great, you know, YouTube about fixed versus growth, but I like this staircase because some people say, oh, that kid's born with talent, soccer talent or math talent or reading talent. Wherever you're born, you're going to have to still go up the staircase and you're still going to come up against a wall of where you have to start really trying. Sometimes we see this in middle school where the kids have to actually start studying, right? Or, you know, in different levels of athletics. Wherever that wall is, we need kids to push through it and we have to teach them. That's the effort. Some people haven't had to give effort before. Now you do. How can you do that? So I love doing forced challenge activities in my classroom, whether it's building a tower with pipe cleaners or those brain teasers. I like getting kids to the frustration level that they might not be able to achieve a goal. So we can talk about, notice that, notice your body, notice your mind, notice your reaction to when that happened, and how can we work towards an attitude of grit, self-talk that's positive, and growth mindset. So here's those fails, right? We're all gonna have fails. Are you gonna let it weigh you down, or are you gonna use them as stepping stones? I love this graphic, right? And our fail tolerance meter, some of ours is better than others. Our kids' failure tolerance meter is sometimes terrible. And sometimes it's because we have these things called lawnmower parents. You know, we used to have helicopter parents that saved the kids. Now we have lawnmower parents that mow down any obstacle in the kid's way. They want to call the teacher and see if they can redo. They want to see if, you know, they always want to see what the other kid did to my kid, or talk to the teacher about their directions weren't clear. You know, not all parents are like that, but in ourselves, we can also monitor when we're having a lawnmower moment. You know, because we are in the world where the world is flat. You know, Thomas Friedman wrote that book where we can see around the world what everyone else is doing. So there's a lot of comparison, and we need to just teach our kids to work hard, deal with failure, and you know, really advocate for themselves rather than us always mowing down the obstacles. All right, so speaking of failure, you know, talking about failure is interesting. I did this lesson in 5th grade last year and 4th grade this year, taking a failure bow. If you look up these terms, failure bow and fail fests are all over technology corporations. Twitter, you know, was created, they were hacking, like they came up with X amount of words you can use in a post in the beginning, right? They figure out little hacks, and they have hackathons to see how you can figure out a problem, a solution to a problem. But I also think that talking about failure, not only celebrating people's failures, but talking about your own personal failures as an educator is so important. So I got to talk about mine last year and this year. I always wanted to be a children's book author. Da, 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 da. Spoiler alert, I think Barbara already said I do have a children's book. But I wrote curriculum guides since like 2005. I've just stumbled upon the right people and had big ideas and had some grit along the way and some great friends to help me and inspire me and blah, blah, blah. I wrote books. Great. Great, Lisa. That's fabulous. What's next? Oh, you have another goal, right? Yeah, you have another goal after you accomplish your past goals. I had a goal of being a children's book author. Oops, that didn't come up right. So here, oh yes, I'm getting all flustered. I get flustered when I talk about this book writing thing because I don't want to be like, hey, I'm an author. But I also want to talk about how I got there because I know you guys have ideas too. Like Barbara is going to do some fabulous national stuff, already has started. But I know she's on the trail to doing amazing things. And all you people at home who I don't know your names, I know you have ideas because we see the ideas that are needed. And if at first you don't succeed, then the kid president tells us, then you're normal because you're not going to succeed in the beginning. And here are all my failures. When basically the publisher I did my curriculum guides with basically said, yeah, you can write a children's book. And then I started submitting manuscripts and they said, yeah, maybe not. These are not good enough. And, you know, that I got to eat some humble pie and, you know, the reaction is just like our kids. What do they know? These are good enough. Well, they weren't. They so weren't. And this is my vulnerability. Brene Brown would be so proud. So I got to take advice from the publisher and they actually assigned me an editor to work with. And she was so harsh. I don't think I have that slide, but did I have it in there? No. Well, there's my beautiful book that I did succeed at. But before this book, on one of these scripts, her words were, this is nowhere near publishable. She probably didn't say it in that tone, but you know, when you read email, you just read it like that. She said, something about this might not be my craft. And she knows I'm passionate about what I do. It was just harsh. Oh my gosh. It was totally harsh, but I didn't give up. And that's why my publisher actually, I think, worked with me because I was trying to walk the walk. I didn't want to give up. I wanted to take their advice. And eventually I submitted one of my like 17th to 25th manuscripts. The editor lady said, okay, I think we can work with this. And then about 14 or 15 drafts later, it became this. It was 14 months of work. I'm super proud of it. It has diverse characters. It has role models. It has words of wisdom about just growth mindset and finding your own voice and advocating for yourself. So enough about that. I have plenty of stuff on the blog about that, but that's just my personal journey to setting a goal and reaching a goal. And now, of course, once you reach a goal, what happens? You set another goal. So I'm ready for some failures ahead, baby. I'm gonna take some failure bows in this quiet-ish time at home. Of course, the ideas are percolating. Okay, enough talking about that. That makes me sweat for some reason. Okay, let's talk about self-talk. So when you have these negative things, right? You're in the not yet, or you're trying to have grit, but you're feeling discouraged. This is actually a graphic that was going around maybe 6 months ago. It was going around Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, but I just saw it recently and I'm like, wow, this is what we need for this time of life right now. This is a challenge. This is a time we have to figure out. I mean, right now, what are we at, March 25th? We have a lot of the challenge ahead where we're gonna have to take heed of the lessons we're teaching kids for our own personal lives, because there's such a question mark about who's gonna be affected from the coronavirus and how education is gonna be affected. So I know I have personal, you have personal mountains ahead of us. So this is one thing to look back on because we are gonna have to practice that self-talk. I teach my kids about flipping a pancake. When you have a negative thought, flipping it over, what could be positive? And sometimes you can't think of one, but come back to it. All right, there's so much more. I only have one slide on self-talk. That could be a whole nother session. But I want to move, since we only have 15 minutes, to the next letter in our little acrostic, which is everyone is unique. Sidebar, Barbara was like, okay, if you don't have an hour worth of material, you don't have to talk for an hour. Yeah, I can talk. But there's so much to say and I'm so passionate about it. So I have more to say than even an hour. But I will keep it at an hour because, we only have attention span so long. All right, let's talk about being unique. So we're no place for hate school, which I think is so important to have that language about ethnicity, what country you're from, all religion, all the things that are on the things you can see and the things that we typically talk about in terms of anti-bias curriculum and accepting people for who they are. And that you can't ever ignore a time to talk about that. But we also need to bring in how everyone learns differently. And I know we have Exceptional Children's Week, but it's not just that. It's the fact that we all learn differently. You know, this is a great cartoon that's from forever ago about, you know, we thankfully don't this year, but usually give these standardized tests, and that's the tree. But that fish and that elephant cannot climb that tree. And our students are fish and elephant and all other creatures that can do amazing things, but might not be able to climb a tree. And so this piece of growth mindset is going to be fascinating when we go back, because I think we're seeing right now, you know, be your own hero. It's about community heroes and everyday heroes. Who are our heroes right now? Plumbers, right? Grocery store workers, the medical professionals, the truck drivers, all these people that might not be able to climb a tree. Gives me chills, because those are our heroes, the people that can do life well, whatever their life is that they're choosing to do. They're being a good one, whether it's a grocery store worker or someone who is, you know, at a retirement home, still coming every day to care for people that need care. So, you know, everyone is unique, everyone has talents, and we need everyone's talents. So how can we cultivate people's talents? Maybe they're not on college track, maybe they can't take standardized tests, but how can we celebrate those talents? You know, we're all different flowers. We're gonna bloom differently, you know, and I love this. I'm blooming slower than you. Well, because we're different flowers, silly. And it's that comparison too. Sometimes my friends tell me they're stopping following me on Instagram because they think I'm doing so much. And I'm like, no, you're doing things too. You're just not posting them. We're different flowers, silly. So if you're a counselor and you think all this professional learning is overwhelming, we are different flowers. And you do you. And pick one thing you're learning today from some of these webinars and integrate that into what we're doing. I'm going on some tangents today, aren't I? But hopefully it's keeping your attention. And it's growth mindset. You know, what we're measuring in school sometimes for our outcome results, right, is that SAT, the GPA. But what leads to success are these skills that have to do with growth mindset and interpersonal relationship and growth, personal growth. Oh, I saw this one. Oh, I might get done before an hour. What do you know? But this is about education. You know, I just saw this on one of the social media things. This somebody, I couldn't give credit because they didn't have their name on it. But a few days ago, last week, this person said 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year from now, you won't say to your students, you should have learned this while you were home, or usually we would be doing blah, blah, blah. But instead, you're going to say to your students, here we are. This is a perfect place to start. I wish I could give someone credit. Because last year, our kids came to us in the perfect place too, just differently perfect, imperfectly perfect. And our kids, some that don't have the technology or the parents home right now to help them with their studies, they're gonna all be different flowers when they come back to us. So we're all unique. All right. Oh, I still have more to go. I thought I was almost done, but I'm not. Okay, brain gadgets. Let's go back to pretending we're at school. I have a brain station in my group room so that when kids, you know, you have your cool down corner. Well, I also have my brain station so that kids can identify that I love brains and that brains have to do with our feelings. And there are also tons of great fidgets and plush neurons. And on my website, you can find this, there's actually a template from Mini Grant. Other people's money is great to spend if you can get it. So if you need a template for where you can find these gadgets, let me know. Also with small group, I do use the acrostic, and I I use it visually so that, kids can look back and see what we've learned. Oh, this is like the biggest honor of my life, is when I see people post things that they've used that I've inspired, and you guys inspire this as well. But you really should keep that folder of warm fuzzies. I keep mine digitally, and this is such a warm fuzzy that this counselor did a mindset advisement group, which is a small group where you meet individually with kids, but also in group. So you have the group connectivity, but the individual accountability, where you're talking about growth mindset. And she did it as an after school club, and she rocked it in Texas. Miss Morales. Okay, mindfulness group I've started doing every year. And this lovely counselor right here is one of my supervisors, Alex Hughley. And I invite her as a guest speaker. Invite guest speakers. Put it in your permission slip that you'll invite guest speakers, so you have the permission. And then the kids listen differently, and you also have planning done. But she basically came in and did a guest teaching of 3 yoga positions. And she would have the kids shake, 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 and then land in one of those yoga positions, like standing mountain, just pretending there's a string from your forehead, from your head, and standing strong. But the kids really responded to that. And I didn't have yoga mats. I just used bolts of fabric. And again, if you're interested in this outline, it's not necessarily a growth mindset, but it's that part of mindfulness. I also encourage you, when you get back to school, to think about doing parent workshops. So you help the parents have that common language. They love learning about flipping your lid. They get that. And we set up a selfie booth and also a challenge that the parents and kids could do together, so that they could practice the language of praise. Oh, good. Okay, so I still have a few minutes. I'm going to actually show you guys this video. The brain likes novel things, and you need another voice in your life right now to listen to. But this is Trevor Reagan teaching about Dweck's research and the language we use with kids or others, and how important it is to use the language of praising effort. So this, I think it's about 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll wrap it up. So this is language to use. Barbara, can you see this and hear it? Thumbs up if you can. Can you hear that or no?
No.
Okay. All right. Then guess what? I'm going to have a growth mindset and skip it. What do you see on your screen, Barbara?
I see staff PD praising effort versus intelligence.
Okay. Well, goodness gracious. Wait, I'm going to try. I'm not going to give up. Watch this.
Okay.
Move on to something different. Hold on. I'm going to stop share, and then I'm going to reshare. Oh, yeah. Share, share. Do you see, check this out?
I do.
Growth mindset, growth mindset. See how that works? Okay, here we go. Yay. All right. So I'm going to try and get back to the PowerPoint now. Da, 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 da. Okay, PowerPoint, thumbs up if you can see it. My member audience of one. Awesome. Okay, so I love that. And I think his videos are spot on. And I love that message of, you know, if you give someone something hard and you're always like, you are so good at math. Here's a really hard math thing. If they can't show you that they're good at math, they're going to feel stupid and not try. But if you're praising them only for, gosh, you're working hard on that, and wow, you're putting a lot of detail into all that you do, they know how to put detail and try. So they know how to get that verbal feedback by just trying. But if they have something they can't do and you're always telling them how smart they are, they're going to feel less than for not being able to. Oh, this is good. Watch this. P.S. Do you see that I spelled intelligence wrong? I used this at another convention, and somebody came up and told me this, and obviously I didn't change it, but I gave that person a free book. Yes, I did. I need to fix that, but then I didn't fix it. Hello. Okay, moving on. So as we're winding down, you guys can implement growth mindset as book studies, just looking at the common language. It's a buffet. Take what you want, leave what you don't. Some people, like the fabulous Becky Grindstaff, implemented full on, like, bloomed flower of growth mindset. At my school at Blackwell, we're doing a ton of growth mindset, but this is more than we even did. You could be the little seed. You can be the little bloom, or you can be as bloomed as you want. Take data on it. I am running over. Look at this. Don't forget to take data. Use a results report. Show how reading is different because of growth mindset. We did this in a multi-school study a couple years ago, which was pretty cool to have our own PLC. And this year we did a data wall. It's still hanging up. It was up for about 3 days. But if you guys want any of this stuff, please email me. Some of the things that schools do just are bulletin boards. And for my school, when we implemented growth mindset, it took about 3 years of really talking the talk and getting administrators on board before people started putting it in their own classrooms. On my website, you can find the resources. And this is a little boy, what I was going to show. He doesn't give up when he tries to jump on this stool, but guess what? We're running out of time. Just know that he didn't give up. He had a growth mindset. He wants to show you. All right, sorry. I'm going to end with this quote. The schools we walked out of won't be the same schools we walk back into when this is over. I've talked about that a little bit, but educators, counselors are developing new skills as we speak, and our schools will only be better because we are having a growth mindset. Thank you so much for your attention. Please email me if you have any questions. Keep calm and have a growth mindset. Thank you guys for your attention. And I'm proud to have been asked to do this. Thanks for the invitation, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This was wonderful. And thank you for sharing all of your resources. You're always so generous with everything. And we thank you for being here today for our Region 3 mini conference.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Well, stay safe and contact me if you have any questions. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.